Southbound 17 is a lyric and harmony driven country trio right here in Charleston. Today, I talked with some of the members of the band, Jack Austen and Katie Bailey, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Jack Austen and Katie Bailey, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Obviously, you all are a part of the Southbound 17, a lyric and harmony-driven country trio here in Charleston, now with a new song called Runaway Bride.
Yes!
Where are you guys emotionally with the new song?
So it's funny. So we released an EP in 2020, right? Or did we wait till early 2021?
I think so.
Yeah, so we dropped an EP back then, and that's something that we've been working on for years. And we were going to do it in 2020. The pandemic was going on. We were like, let's wait, because it's just not a good time for that. You can't go play shows. You can't go promote it or anything. So we ended up delaying that. We put it out. And then after that, everyone's always like, what's next? What's next? And I mean, by that time, we were at a point where we had already had like new songs written. We were ready to go. So we hopped up to Nashville, recorded Runaway Bride. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted like a Southern Gothic kind of feel for this single. And I think we accomplished that pretty well. I was super happy with that.
We really wanted to give that EP its moment, and now we're kind of focusing on a few singles before we get into the next big project. The Runaway Bride is the start of that.
Where are you guys in the moment as obviously music artists?
I mean, I feel like we're in a good place. I always say as long as we are playing more shows and having as long as we are growing every year, I'm super happy. We love playing shows. It's how we get to really connect with people. We just had one last night, and we had two couples dancing along, and that's why we do it. It's like an emotional connection with the audience. And we really missed that during the pandemic. Of course, we were playing some not live shows. What am I thinking?
Live streams,
but it's not the same. So it's really exciting to get back into that.
Absolutely. And Jack, how did you all connect with the audience pre-pandemic?
So it's interesting the way that we kind of came about. We started back in 2014, and we were all in school. I think Jacob and I were still like seniors in high school around that. Katie was at College of Charleston. And then Jacob and I ended up going to College of Charleston as well. So we were doing a like delicate balancing act between jobs and school and the band.
Music.
And you kind of just would like fit it together however you can. Now, fast forward to where we are now, like we're all graduated. We have jobs during the day, but now we're able to focus so much more time. So I would say compared to back then, connecting with audiences is so much easier for us now just because we're able to book more shows. We're able to do things more frequently, where then we were really just kind of like piecing it in. But now like our full energy is able to be focused on it.
Which in hindsight was a blessing. You want to do it slowly. I would not want to look back at videos from when we first started out. I would cringe a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want to see them. You got to start somewhere, but you don't want to be reminded.
Yes.
Well, that's the same thing with me when I started Quintin's Close-Ups in 2012 with just a flip video camera.
I think he still has some videos on his flip.
That's really amazing. Speaking of time, how many songs did you all actually write during the pandemic before you actually released them?
Ooh.
Well, Jack's our main songwriter. I always joke that I write like one song every project. I need to get into it a little bit more. I have some ideas floating around on my phone right now. You would not even believe my notes app. But Jack's definitely our main songwriter. He will like sequester himself in his room.
That's how a lot of my writing goes, is like I'm usually pretty busy during the week or whatever, or when I'm not busy, we'll have shows. So I'm always writing stuff down on my notes app.
Yeah.
And then I also have a notebook that like I'll at nighttime sometimes, and before I go to bed, I'll like get out the notebook and I'll kind of like get my ideas together. And it's funny because in that notebook, I have so many like fragments of songs. And then eventually, once I give myself like enough discipline to sit down and kind of like build it out and piece all of those like scraps together, and then I'll bring it to Jacob and Katie. We'll organize their parts. They'll give me rewrites or whatever they want to do with it, and then we go. So I have a ton of like a notebook full of pieces of songs.
He's very much a perfectionist. He does not like to come to us until the song is pretty much fully fledged and pretty much written, other than instrumentals. like on Runaway Bride, I changed a line here and there, and of course the instrumentals change the song as we're doing it. But he does most of the songwriting for sure.
Wow. What ideas were you writing down during the pandemic?
Oh gosh.
I actually have a song that we're going to go record later this year that was something that we almost recorded earlier, but it was kind of like my pandemic exhaustion song. It was called Peace of Mind, like kind of like desperately looking for some peace of mind. So that's one that I'm really, really excited to go record, because that's one that I wrote that relatively quickly. And that one they've heard before. Yeah. We kind of demoed it at home on the computer, but we're going to go do a full studio recording. But that's one that I'm really, really looking forward to. That's super pandemic driven.
Everything really changes once you hit the studio. We used to very fully rehearse before we got in there. And now I'm starting to believe in keeping it a little bit more loose and organic, because once we get in with those studio musicians, they are so amazing that it can completely transform the whole song.
Yeah, it's funny because like every song we have, we really meet like 4 iterations of it. The one being the most pure form of just like writing it, acoustic, just one person. Then I bring it to them. We do a demo. That's a whole nother sound. And then once we take it to the studio and we collaborate with these other musicians, it becomes a whole nother thing. And then after that, when the 3 of us go back and perform it live at shows, it's a whole nother
It also changes a little bit.
So what is the biggest difference of being in the studio, obviously recording, to being on the stage?
The studio is such a more controlled environment, which is something that's really, really nice, because it's a song that you wrote and you're dedicating a lot of time to and energy, and you want people to hear it in its best form. So if you do a pass of a vocal and you're like, I could do that better, I want people to hear it this certain way, you have the ability to go back and do it. Where at a live show, 9 times out of 10, it goes how you want it.
Yeah.
But like, for example, last month we played a show outside. It was the windiest day I had ever felt. We were underdressed, so cold. And it's like, when you do things like that, you're like, there's probably a couple notes that didn't come out exactly how I wanted them to, but you don't get to go back.
And there's some beauty in that. That's why people go to a live show.
Exactly.
That's why they love it, and it is that connection still. But yeah, it's very different.
But now that the weather's warming up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Oh yes, absolutely. Especially after the past couple of days here.
Yes.
But why Southbound 17? Why country music?
Oh, it's just, I don't want to say it's just the best. It's just the best. As songwriters, first and foremost, as you said, there's something so magical about the songwriting process in country music that is so emotional and so connected. This is not country music, but we just watched Olivia Rodrigo's special on Disney Plus, and she was actually talking about how country music is just such a connection, and she was bringing that into her music, even though she is not country.
And I think part of it comes from growing up here. I know that all 3 of us were very exposed to that from our parents in the car as kids. So that's a good kind of like root foundation. And I'll say, like, now we listen to such vast different music, like every genre, every era you can think of. I'm always listening to new stuff. Katie's always listening to old stuff. Jacob is always on like an indie kind of like rap rotation on his Spotify. So we really get all kinds of influences, but I think it comes back to like being young and listening to like the chicks in the car and all kinds of stuff. And then Jacob, of course, when we started, he got his Papa's banjo that he found in his parents' closet, and that always lends itself to country. So it was just all these little things that took us in that direction.
And we get to have some fun at live shows with some songs that aren't necessarily country and really countrify them with that banjo. And that's really, really fun. And that kind of throws people off in the best way. And that really makes us very unique.
Songs throw you off musically when it comes to other genres?
Like, the one thing that when we like to play cover songs of other genres, instrumentally, it's kind of difficult because we have an acoustic guitar, a mandolin, a kick drum, and then a banjo. So if we really want to do a song that's like heavy piano riffs, we have to sit down and be like, okay,
well, like for
the
example,
banjo is going to do that.
Well, the weight is heavily piano, and I'll take over the piano riff on the mandolin or something like that.
We do Clocks by Coldplay, which is total piano driven, and we just have Jacob learn that piano roll on his banjo.
We were at practice, and he did a roll that sounded so much like Clocks. I was like, we have to do Clocks. and people love it. It's really, really fun.
Yeah, so we'll tackle some stuff that's maybe not like the best suited for us originally, but we're like, we'll make it.
Yeah.
And what musical instrument do you want to personally learn how to use next?
Ooh.
I really, really, really love piano, and I have such a small rudimentary knowledge of it. And we have a piano here.
It's in our kitchen.
So sometimes I'll sit down and I'll try to play on it. But like that is something that I would love to become more like adept and actually be able to do what I want to do on it.
And poor Jack, it's a piano that's been in my family for generations and generations. And we had someone come out here when we moved it into our house. It is definitely off key.
Slightly flat. Like
it's a little honky tonky sound, but he does his best.
Right, absolutely. And I know that Southbound 17 began in the early fall of 2014. What is the biggest difference about music from 2014 to 2022?
Oh man, just in general, I mean, like in the pop scene, it's completely changed. It's so much more throwback driven, even in country. Yeah. Country has become a lot more singer-songwriter focused, which is great for us. It's less of those like air horn sounds and more of like really stripping the music back and forming that connection a little bit more.
And I mean, it's coming from the musical side, I still feel like we do what we want to, what we're inspired to do at the time. But I'll say from like the infrastructure and business side of music, from 2014 to now, you've seen such an explosion of like streaming platforms and Spotify and that kind of thing. And it kind of changes how you navigate things, because I've always been a huge fan of albums, full albums. You can listen to it in the car, top to bottom. It tells a cohesive kind of time in that artist's life. So I always love
Jack's
a project.
He still buys CDs. So
yeah. And then now we're adapting and learning. So we put out our EP and it did what we wanted it to do. But then, you know, singles is where it's at. You're supposed to put out a single and drive excitement and hype. And you drop these little things, and then maybe later you culminate them into something bigger. So it changes how you approach things from like a release standpoint and a marketing standpoint.
And we love like a theme and an overarching project, really. So it's just pivoting. It's just slightly pivoting every year. And I feel like because of social media, the pivots have become more frequent, which is fine. It keeps us on our toes. And every day is new.
Technology is such a great way to introduce yourself to new people and to find new things. But at the same time, there are so many social media platforms and things and places that you need to be visible. You need to be up to date. You need to have high quality pictures. You need to be constantly engaging, creating content. And after a while, you're kind of like, ooh, I wish I could just unplug.
And it's hard. You want to focus on the music first. But it's almost where it's completely flipped, and it's image and promotion, and it's just different.
It all goes hand in hand, but it's definitely different, at least from where we started doing things the way that we used to do things to now. It's crazy.
And what was your approach to music prior to social media and obviously streaming?
I mean, mostly when we started out, it started out kind of like as a fun thing.
We started out at an open mic, and it went extremely well. I mean, if it had not gone well, we probably still would have continued, but it really gave us the fire and the passion and the bug to really want to be up on stage as much as we could.
And like, we're lucky to live in a community like Charleston where we have a music scene, because some places don't have that infrastructure. And as we were coming up, it was mostly about live shows. Mm-hmm. I mean, we, for the first couple of years, didn't have any professionally recorded projects. Yeah. So we would just get shows from people like Eddie White with On Dog Green would recommend us to somebody, or we'd have friends, and things started to pop up. And it was such we were just so live driven. We hadn't done anything. We were so new. We didn't really have any background. And then after that takes off, you get your footing, you meet people, you have a little bit of a following. Then it kind of forayed into getting stuff recorded, getting stuff out in a different way.
As a matter of fact, I wanted to ask you, who did you surround yourselves with when it came to making your music in 2014?
As far as making music, we were pretty
self-contained.
Not like isolated, but like the three of us would collaborate with one another. And if you go back, we still have our 2017 debut EP up on Spotify. And it is literally just the three of us, our instruments, no real production or anything. So it's so stripped back, like the most distilled form of what we did.
It's nice to look back on. I will say in 2014, Jacob hadn't picked up a banjo in the beginning of the year. I had never picked up a mandolin. I've been in chorus my whole life and I've been singing. I really wanted an outlet to sing again, so I'm really happy that happened. But I was in I do believe sophomore year of college at that point, and I had never picked up an instrument in my life. So the internet helped a lot with that. Jack had taken guitar lessons when he was growing up, but that kind of led to us wanting to really build up our craft at that point and then kind of go out into the world. I think we accidentally stumbled upon like a bluegrass like jam very early on, not knowing what that meant. And they're just going and we're like, okay, here we go.
And that's something that we get a lot is because we have a banjo and a mandolin. People are like, you're a bluegrass band. And we're like, I mean, we have bluegrass instruments, but we really don't play bluegrass.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, and I hate to act this because I know it's not really a craft for you all, but it's really a career. But how do you build your craft now?
Just by doing it as much as you can.
Well,
really.
Like one thing that we do now is since we play so frequently, we don't have to worry as much about downtime between shows. So like back then, we would get our sets together and we'd have to run the sets and make sure we knew the stuff. But now it's like if we go take a week off, we go travel somewhere, we take a vacation or whatever, you come back, you have a show the next day after you get back, we're like ready to roll.
It also helps that we all live together. We've been best friends since the beginning. Wow. A lot of times we think about like bringing in a drummer or something like that, but we work so close. Our social lives are intertwined with practice, and we're painting our cabinets in the kitchen right now. So we put a coat on the cabinet and then Jacob picks up the banjo and we mess around with it. It's so intertwined with our lives, which is great for us. We love that. And it makes it really fun.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of traveling, where would you want to take your shows to next?
Oh, gosh, everywhere.
Yeah,
I've never even been on a plane before. I need to get out there.
I know she's real John's Island. But I mean, luckily the past year, I guess, or maybe right before the pandemic and now, we're playing more regionally. I mean, South Carolina mostly, but we'll go to Beaufort. We played the Oyster Festival.
We love.
We get to go to Myrtle Beach, play at the Hard Rock, all that kind of thing. One place that, I mean, of course, you're a country musician, you want to go play more is Nashville. We've only played Nashville a few times, so that's something we want to do more. But honestly, just being able to dedicate time to travel more and go play more places, that's always something that we're like just about getting ready to do, but we haven't really put together our like mini tour yet.
And then pandemic came, but I think now we're ready. We're ready to venture out again.
What's one of those cities that you want to travel to actually resembles your music?
I mean,
Nashville's the obvious answer with that, but
it's hard because our music is so not just like it's unique, but it's not necessarily driven by any like traditional form. Like we come in with a lot of different influences. Like a lot of times we get Americana. Like people will say you're kind of Americana.
We're Amerikinda.
Yeah. It's just like Charleston is so suited to us because you have so many different types of people who have so many different types of backgrounds and music and all kinds of culture here. Yes. I don't even know. I can't really think of any other place that really would represent us so correctly. You know,
yes,
I mean, anywhere you're going to find people who connect to your music.
Yes,
that's the good thing about it.
And what other music are you all connecting yourselves to personally?
Oh man, I love Casey Musgraves, Olivia Rodrigo. I mentioned she's been playing a lot right now in my mind. When I'm at work, I listen to soul music, like everything. Really, there's really not a genre that you could put on that any of us couldn't connect to and really like.
We love the Lumineers have a new album out. They're coming to Credit One Stadium, so we're going to see them. That's going to be super fun. I mean, Avril Lavigne is someone I grew up with. She has a new album out that's just like pop punk, like good times. I've been listening to that a lot. So we really run the gambit of like all kinds of influences.
Wow, that is amazing. And what is your writing style in 2014, and what is your writing style now?
I was a little bit more hokey in 2014 than I am now, and I think that's just like I have a song on the first album called "Crazy Mamas." It's deeply personal. It's like it's
tongue in cheek.
Yes,
jokey.
Yes.
Right.
Which there's a time and a place, and that's fun. But the song that I contributed to our latest EP is called "The Moon, the Stars, and You," which is very much more like a ballad that's very like from the heart and a little bit slower. Mm-hmm. Jack has always been more deep, I would say. But I mean, we were even a little bit more hokey.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, you always hone your craft. I mean, you hope you do, as you keep doing it so often. You hope you get a little more precise and a little more like where you want to be with it. So. I would say fundamentally things are similar to how we would write back then, but you kind of finesse it, you know?
Yeah. And where do you want to be right now, Jack?
Ooh, I mean, as far as like musically, lyrics are so important to me, so I always focus on that, and then like most times I'll be writing lyrics before I get the music into it, which sometimes can be a little tricky. Like it helps to do them together because sometimes you'll have something in your head and then you go to find it and you really can't find exactly what you thought you wanted it to sound like. But I mean, just I always want to be the happiest with my lyrics that I'm putting out, and I kind of have that when I'm writing. Is like a lot of times I won't even write the line down until I know I like it enough. Other people will write it down, come back, cross it out. And it's maybe a little slower for me that way because I'll sit there and I'll kind of like, until I'm really happy with the line, and I'll always come back and I will edit it. But, I mean, I just like being very precise with what I want to say and trying to do it in a clever, like evocative way.
And yeah, I think you touched on it where we just want to be happy with the latest project that we came out with, I think is the goal, and even happier with what we're about to come out with, if that makes any sense.
And I mean, you're always your biggest critic. I mean, at least we are. You hear something, you know, I could have done that differently. I wish I had said something differently. But the best feeling is when you can listen to something and be like, you know what? That's really good. Like, I'm very happy that people get to hear that. Like, that's something I'm very proud to
You want to be excited to promote what you just came out with, for sure.
And how do you promote in the era of social media and streaming channels, obviously?
Yeah, you gotta. So I'll set up like on nights before. Well, typically we'll do like a social media rollout with maybe some like teaser videos and posts and clips, etc. And then as it gets closer, you announce it and you do the artwork and you put it on your e-blast and all this stuff. And then the funniest part is like during all those things, like I have to create like social media banners and profile pictures and bio updates. And then when we announce it, I have to go through that day or that night and pull up our bands in town and Reverb Nation, Spotify, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and change a website, change everything. And then on the like the nights that the albums come out or the EP or whatever the song comes out, I'll be setting up 11:59, go through all the social media, change all the pictures in the meantime. So I mean, as far as promotion, there's a lot that goes into it. And you know what? We just do what we know. There's so many better ways that I'm always trying to learn. I'm always watching videos about like what's the best way to promote something. And now it's very playlist driven. You want to get up on playlists. There's all kinds of factors that factor into it. So I mean, it's always changing. But right now,
there's no guidebook either. There's no formula.
You just want to generate awareness. You know, you want people to hear about it. You want people to be interested and go click on it. That picture is cool. I wonder what the song sounds like. So you just try to get it out there.
Out there. And what do you want people to be aware of when it comes to Southbound 17?
Aware of. Mostly be aware of our Spotify page and listen and stream. That's the best way to help us out. Hopefully people listen to the one song and they can really connect with it and they really dig it. Also be aware of our live shows that we have coming up. We love to see people. This Saturday we have a gig at Deepwater that we love to play at. We do a lot of like on Sunday we're playing a wedding. Like we'll do all kinds of different things.
Where does your music take people to?
I think it depends on the song. Like we have a song, No Vacancy, which was our single to lead up to the EP that we did. And that's kind of just like a fun, affirming kind of sweet song. It's a good up tempo. So people like have fun with that. People like to see that one live at shows. That's one that people really kind of latched onto. And then another one that was it's an album cut from the EP. So we didn't really promote it. We don't really play it live very often, called Lucky You. It's a lot more somber. It's more of a kind of like heartbreak, just kind of in a, not a negative mood, but a really kind of like down.
It's my favorite on the album.
And that's when that people will come up and they'll be like, that is my favorite song on the EP. And you just don't expect that. So, I mean, it'll take you from a really positive, like road trippy vibe to like a in your feels kind of like down on yourself vibe. So, I mean, you run the gambit, which is one of my favorite things in music.
For like our latest single, Runaway Bride,
Yes.
I manage a local bridal store in West Ashley. And it comes from a place of, I have seen the brides who don't end up going through with it for whatever reason. And you really don't have to be a runaway bride to connect with that song.
Yeah.
But it's a specificity that, like, the more specific you go with a topic, the more everyone can relate in a certain way.
Yeah. Okay. Which one of your songs describes you all?
Oh boy. Oh goodness.
I would say for the most part, it's funny because honestly, all of us gravitate towards sad songs. We like a sad song, but we're really not sad people. We're pretty like, I wouldn't say like happy-go-lucky, but we're pretty positive. We like to have a good time. So I would probably, No Vacancy is what rings the most true to me as far as like the vibe of it all. Like us, we are always in the truck going to shows, going different places. So that's something that feels like it encapsulates us the best. Because when you have those moments of like sad times, but I feel like as a whole, that's like where we are.
Some days it's taking shots. That's one off of our latest EP. Where it's like, it's when you're going back and forth with this person, but it's also a tongue-in-cheek taking shots. That's kind of fun. Some days it is taking shots, I won't lie.
And what else has your music given life to?
That's an interesting question. I mean, because of our music, like right near the middle of the pandemic, we wanted to do a music video. So that put us on a little road trip around Southeast. And we went to Savannah, Georgia and Myrtle Beach and found these old motels, and we self-filmed this video. So the music, I mean, on a personal level, it gives so many opportunities for us. Like we get to go these places. It like gives us things that we never would do or places we would never be. It gives us those kind of opportunities. It gives birth to like different scenarios that we wouldn't normally be in. Like last night, we were on Kiowa Island playing at the Kiowa Island Club for a night market. And I looked out and there was the marsh and the golf course and the sun was setting. And I turned to Jake McKinney. I was like, how lucky are we that like tonight, this is where we are and this is where we're playing music and this is what we were getting paid to do it. So, I mean, how lucky is that?
On a really emotional level, it gives life literally to me. I recently posted on my personal Facebook page. I've been going through a lot of health issues. I was in a car accident 2 years ago with my back, and it's an escape from daily like pain. Like the other night, we just jammed on the couch for like an hour, jamming to some Civil War songs and just messing around with harmony. And Jacob was on the guitar, which he doesn't usually do. He's usually just on the banjo. And it's an escape. It really helps if you have a stressful job or something like that to come home and just belt out your favorite song. I mean, it's medicine. Music is medicine. That's the thing that goes around that people say, but it's really true. It gives life to us. It gives us meaning. It gives us purpose and something and drive.
Yeah. When did music become your medicine?
When?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, from the very beginning, like I said, I was in chorus, and it's something that I realized that I was pretty okay at. And this is so embarrassing, but I was a very shy kid, but you put me on stage and I was on it. It was almost medicine in that way, where it really brought me out of my shell. What about you?
I mean, for me, growing up, we were always very musically, like we always in the car had different music and soundtracks and all kinds of things playing. So music has always been such a not I wasn't gonna say a crutch, but such a like a healing thing for me because no matter what's going on in your life, like I would always find that one song that spoke to me specifically about what was going on, and that became like my soundtrack for whatever time. Because there's been times where there's like a Paramore song that like I just listen to over and over. There's so many songs that have helped me through things. You know what I mean? Instead of necessarily talking about it with somebody, you almost get to internal monologue with yourself about it through somebody else's lyrics. So it's kind of a really odd situation, but it's so helpful, at least for me, to process all kinds of things.
It's also so wild how revisiting an album or a song that you haven't listened to in years can take you back to a certain point in your life. It's music is amazing. It's wild.
What's one of your songs that you haven't listened to in a while that you want to go back and revisit now?
Ooh, Earthquake.
Yeah, that was on our first 2017 EP, and that's one that we'll pull out every so often at live shows, just because it's something that's stuck with us. And that's one that, if you give me a track list of that EP, and you're like, "What are you the most proud of?" I'm like, Earthquake.
And it's off of that very stripped back album, so we have discussed bringing it back
in the future, doing full production, full band sound. So we might have to bring that one around.
Yeah.
Wow. And how have you all understand music better through other people's music?
You know, I would say something that's really cool is when we started out, there were a lot of other young artists in Charleston, and we were really lucky because we had this kind of like friend community of peers where we could ask questions of them if we didn't know something. Like when we were getting ready to release our first thing, we were like, what distributor do we pick? How do we do this? So we would ask our friends who are also musicians, people like Lauren Hall, who's still very prominent around here. Haley McCampbell was a friend of ours during that time. She's in Nashville doing amazing things. So there's so many people that we were so lucky to kind of like cross path with, and that we're still in touch with. We still get to talk to them.
It was interesting. It was like a generation of us, for some reason, all at the very same time, decided to start at the same time. And I'm sure that there's younger people now, but it just was, it's so weird how we all came up at the same time.
Yes.
I think about that all the time. It must have been something in the air. I don't know.
Matter of fact, I think it was one day I was coming around the corner from the music hall, well, the music farm that is, and I think Haley Mae Campbell's father gave me her business card to, call her up for an interview. So I got to get that done soon.
Yes.
Oh yes, yeah, I'm working on that this summer. But how do you all stay friendly in the music business without being competitive with your friends?
I would say it's sometimes difficult with social media as far as like comparisons, but on the whole, I'm always with the mindset of, you know what, like there's enough for everyone. We're all so different. We're all doing such different things. And while we overlap and we have all these things in common, it's not like anybody's taking away from anybody. Right. So like we get to go to these people's shows.
That's one of the great things about Charleston is there's venues everywhere. Right. There's opportunities everywhere. It's not very cut.
It's not you get this so I don't. It's like you get this. That's awesome. I'm coming.
Yeah.
And then they'll turn around and they'll come to something you're doing. So again, that's probably not for everybody even here, but we've been so lucky to meet friendly, collaborative people, and we just love to give that energy back just because it's such a better situation.
And it's really nice to sit down at the bar with Lauren Hall. Where was that? Port of Call?
Port of Call,
for Bennett Coleman's show and like talk about her year and how she's doing it compared to how we're doing it. It's because there is no guidebook, like I said. Mm-hmm. So it's really
don't go
helpful.
To school for this typically. So.
Wow. And the Port of Call is doing really well. I walk past it all the time.
Really good.
It's such a cool place, and the food is so good.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's in my work neighborhood right there in the market, so that's amazing to see. And they're so busy lately, so that's really, really good for them.
Yes.
I know that since obviously you all launched your music, you haven't really slowed down. What has kept you moving musically?
I mean, musically, I always like get an idea, you know, like I told you I wrote it down on my phone or whatever.
Right.
So there's always little things that will just come to me throughout the day, like randomly, and I'll write it down, or as I'm going to sleep, something will pop in my head. So I feel like it's interesting because sometimes you'll sit back and you'll think like, wow, stuff like this has already been said, because I mean, if you look at it, every topic has been covered in some form or another, but you're just like, how do I put my spin on it? So even though you're not breaking necessarily new ground, you're like, how can I say this in an interesting, compelling way that's something that relates to me, you know? So I feel like that's a good thing, is no matter what, there's always a new way to say something.
Yeah.
So that keeps you making stuff.
Yeah. And what topics do you want to cover next with your own spin?
Honestly, with what I was going into with my chronic pain, I'm actually having a really good day today, which is nice.
Thank God.
But Jack was even turning to me the other day, and he's like, put this pain into a song. That's probably my next inspiration. What about you?
I have a song that I'm working on. I haven't shared it with y'all yet. So we started this when we were like 17, 19, and now we're on the other side all of us are on the other side of 25. We're getting older. So it's kind of like not like a looking back song, but like a, wow, we've aged, but at the end of the day, we're really still the same. Like, we're getting older, but we're still like doing the same thing. We're still having fun, you know, like it hasn't stopped us. So that's kind of something that I'm working on now.
Wow, that is amazing. And I know, obviously, in your music, as you mentioned, acoustic guitar, banjo, and mandolin are layered with visually compelling lyrics and tight harmonies to create a fresh East Coast Western sound. What will that sound be like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Ooh, hopefully build up even more. Hopefully get some more, like you said, what we're learning instrument-wise to hopefully back us even more and make an even fuller sound. We're always looking for that. Like I said, right now it's a kick drum that I'm doing as our drum, so maybe getting a little bit more into the percussives and stuff like that. Just building up on it.
And what other, this is really what I wanted to ask. When will be the great time to really expand your music to other genres?
Ooh, that's interesting, because I always say, I'm always like offhand, I'll make a comment like, should we be a pop punk band? Should we change? Just because like I also love that kind of stuff, like Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco. I love jamming to that in the car or whatever. So I'm always like, should we do that? We used to cover a Fall Out Boy song, Sugar We're Going Down. And we would play that with our own spin on it. So I mean, as far as just dipping our toe into other genres, I think we're always.
And we get to do that with our covers for sure. When you mention something like that, I think of groups like the band Perry, who did a pivot, not as successfully as someone who did it like Taylor Swift. I don't see that happening in our near future at all, because I think we're pretty happy with the tools that we have and the instruments that we have.
And I'll say some people get very like genre line, and they're like, you don't cross this.
But we really don't have a really specific genre.
Yeah.
Like you said, East Coast Western is something that we made up.
As far as we're concerned, we're like, good music is good music, no matter where you find it, no matter how it's presented to you. So I mean, our love for other genres may manifest in a more concrete way sometimes.
Yeah, we really don't pin ourselves into any pin, really.
Yes, indeed. Which one of your current songs describes your band's future?
I don't know if we have anything that really articulates our future.
I think that it's gonna pivot a little bit coming into the next project. Maybe get a little bit, I don't want to say darker in tone, but he mentioned earlier Southern Gothic. It's can you describe it a little bit?
She had mentioned earlier, talking to you, the Civil Wars, that duo. We loved them as they were coming up and as they kind of ended things, and we still listen to them religiously. So something kind of like that has a darker tone.
Grit.
Ashley McBride. There's like people that have like this. It's hard to articulate, but you know, just kind of like a macabre kind of grimness to them.
Yes.
You know, not for everything, but just as like a flavor element, and that's something that I kind of want to tap into.
What's the one? That's the band that Jacob really likes. They have a banjo. I'd be in good
Dead South.
Dead South,
Wow.
something like that.
Wow. That's amazing. We hope to hear more from you all.
Well, keep eyes on.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Jack Austen and Katie Bailey, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Yes.
Oh, you're very welcome anytime.